probably know that just based on the session, we'll just be chatting about how you can eliminate just your tedious accounting tasks with automation, and of course, just looking at the top 10 processes that you should be automating today. Just so that just a quick introduction who I am. I am Cindy. I am the head of sales, and I look after the global teams or global sales teams at Approval Max. I am joined by a great panel of hosts, of course, and I will actually allow them to introduce themselves. And I'm not sure I would do a much better job than what they would do. So let's start off with, perhaps we can start off with Richard, or you want to kick us off?
Yep, no, can do. Thanks, thanks, Jess. So my name's Richard. I'm a account manager, a key account manager at Ignition. So part of my job is to help new customers into the digital accountancy world to make sure that they're getting the best out of Ignition, interacting with other softwares as well, looking at their overall sort of client engagement process, and help them to streamline some of their processes internally, some of their workflows, and this kind of stuff. So really just helping them on the journey to make sure that they're sort of making the most of the software that they're subscribing to in the business. So good to be here with you guys today. Looking forward to it.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining, Richard.
Thank you.
Jessica, do you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Cindy. So yeah, as a quick introduction, my name is Jess, and I'm a senior account manager on Fathom's EMEA team. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Fathom, it's a reporting, forecasting, consolidations, and benchmarking tool. So it's kind of all wrapped up into one. And it really helps visualize and automate your insights. So yeah, I'm really excited to be talking to you all today, and thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica. Do we have Stuart on the line as well? Okay, he hasn't joined us just yet. So I think just for now, in the meantime, like I've mentioned, of course, just a quick thank you for our panel for just taking the time out to just impart your knowledge in today's discussion. I'm very confident that today will be pretty valuable as well for everyone on this session. So I think just before we get going, I just have a couple of maybe just house rules that we can just go through before we get started. So if you do have any questions, there is a chat box, so feel free to just pop them into the chat box throughout the session, and we can pick them up as we go along. This session, of course, will be recorded, as I mentioned. So you'll get a copy of the recording after the webinar, just to share around with your teams if you'd like. And of course, we will share contact details as well at the end of the webinar from these various vendors, if you'd like to hear more about the various vendors after the session. So I think now that we've gotten that out of the way, you'll see there's a quick agenda, and we'll go straight into some polls. But before we get into it, just some context. Like I've mentioned, we're looking at the top 10 accounting processes that you should be automating, as well as ongoing sort of benefits of automation, including just improved accuracy, which could be leading to increased productivity within your organization or within your firm. And then at the end, we'll end off with some tips just on best practices for implementing automation in your own organization and your own firm as well. Awesome. It seems that if we can just confirm, perfect. Let's just go into just the first poll. So you'll see the first poll should pop up on your screen. This is what processes do you think are the most challenging to automate? Accounts payable, accounts receivable, reporting, client onboarding, payments. And if you've selected other, please feel free to just share it in the chat box as well. It seems Awesome. The Q&A chat box has been opened. Apologies for that. Cool. So we'll give it a few seconds just for the poll results to come in. So if you have it popped up on your screen, please feel free to share give your insights. Some of you guys are saying that, Michelle, you don't see the poll on your side. Okay, seems like we've gotten a fairly split of the poll results as well, which is pretty interesting. So it looks like we have quite a high number looking at reporting, so which seems to be the most challenging to automate. Some with accounts payable, client onboarding, payments, and accounts receivable. It seems like there's about a small percentage on the other, so perhaps in the chat box if there's any there. If not, then I think we can potentially maybe just move on then as we go along. So I think, I mean, just to kick us off, I think it's a fairly interesting sort of split of the results that we do have. But before we sort of move on, I just want to kind of lay the groundwork with some sort of automation or accounting automation as well. You guys can see the poll results maybe just on your screen. You'll be able to see the split between the two, or the variance is the difference, which is quite interesting to be able to see. So I think as we could potentially then just move on perhaps onto Richard with going into his sort of slides or his section from Ignition. So Richard, what do you think just are your top 3 accounting processes that you think could or easily be automated? And what do you think are the benefits of adopting them, would you say?
Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks, Cindy. I think, yeah, the poll results were quite, I wouldn't say surprising, actually. So one of the things I've noticed through working at Ignition for 3.5 years is that there's challenges across the whole spectrum of running a business, certainly in the accounting and bookkeeping space. And everyone's needs are different. So that was quite an interesting poll result, I think, the fact that it was so split across all of the options. So yeah, so from an Ignition perspective, I've selected 3, I guess, core areas that we provide value in specifically. So we're going to be looking at the proposal and engagement process, the invoicing and billing and reconciliation of that. And also something a bit more wider reaching, and that's the sort of like the workflow management. So how do you manage the work within a practice that needs to be done? They're all, separate processes, but they sort of overarch and they overlap each other. So I like to think of it as a bit of a Venn diagram. So you have these 3 different areas, but they all overlap. And in the middle, it's the client experience. And I think everything that we do as software vendors and as service providers from an accounting and bookkeeping perspective has to be about, well, what is the client experience? So from our side, the first one we're looking at is the proposal and engagement process. So, when we get new customers into the Ignition world, we work with them a lot. We ask questions. We sort of understand exactly what they're doing today before they've sort of adopted the technology and looked at process changes. And I think something like 9 out of 10 businesses at the moment are doing the proposal and engagement manually. So there's a lot of room for error in that process, because they're going to be taking an old engagement that they might have sent through PDF or email to a client a year ago, taking that, rehashing it, sort of taking some sections out, putting some sections in, updating the pricing manually, and sending that out, and hopefully they'll get a digital signature back. So there's a huge scope for error. And again, it goes back to what I was saying about the client experience. When things are done manually, and there are these sort of, I guess, pain points and friction points in the initial engagement process with a client, that's going to create a negative experience or a negative view, I guess, of the business. And I think customers and people generally are very astute at spotting when things work well, and they want to know that the services that you're going to provide them ultimately going forward, and hopefully for a long time, are going to be delivered in a really well managed way. So for us, the engagement and proposal part of the client relationship is core. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if customers or people on the call have actually done a client engagement strategy review before, but it's a really important thing, I think, to think about and do. What does your client engagement or your client journey look like overall at the moment today? Is it manual? Is there a lot of sort of back and forth between you and the client, asking questions, gathering information, clarifying this kind of points, is everything transparent? And if it's not, then obviously a strategy of what the client engagement process looks like is core. And mapping that out as well, it's a really good exercise to do, because you can see very quickly what parts of your process maybe need revision, what could be automated, I guess. And that's exactly where Ignition really comes into the mix, because when you adopt a solution such as Ignition, everything is predefined. And one of the things we do with new customers is we spend a 90-day period and then longer going forward, but to make sure that everything is defined and thought of right at the beginning. So what are your services? A lot of customers coming into this world haven't actually got a defined list of all of their services. What does the service look like? What's in scope? What's out of scope? What the requirements are? What the expectations are? So we help to sort of define those kind of things and get them all built into Ignition. And then once you've got that, you've obviously got your clients. We can segment your clients out into different sectors, different industries. And then using some of the more powerful tools in Ignition, we can define quite complex engagement strategies and get those predefined and built as templates. So when all of that work's done, it really allows you to engage clients quickly, but also in a very efficient way and a repetitive way as well. You can get a really complex engagement out to a whole bunch of clients if you needed to within a matter of minutes when everything is pre-configured. So yeah, that's engagement process and proposal management. For me, that's the core thing, because that really sets the expectation of your client to the relationship that they're going to have with you as a service provider and a partner, I think. So really think about what the client journey looks like.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think the first impression is always lost when you're building that relationship with your clients, and it's exactly like you're saying. That first step in building that out in the beginning is so important to lay that groundwork going forward and understanding your client. I see, sorry, Richard, I see Stuart has joined as well. So I just want to give him a quick thumbs up. Hi, Stuart, welcome.
Hello, sorry for being late. Classic fashion. Causing you stress there, no doubt.
No worries, no worries. I think we will just continue with Richard, and then we'll jump over to you, Stuart. But if you have any insights on your side, Stuart, feel free to jump in as well as we move on to process. Maybe just to the next process with that Richard can take us through.
Yeah, so cool. Okay, so the second process, which sits, I guess, behind the engagement process, once you've got the client engaged and interacting with you as a service provider, obviously you're going to want to make sure that the invoicing, the billing, the invoicing, payment collection and reconciliation of invoices is as seamless as the engagement process as well. You just said first impressions last. I also like last impressions last as well, because it's what happens when you leave and the next steps. And if you do have a really good first part, but then everything else after that is disjointed and broken, then it's going to sow the seed of doubt, I think, in clients. And when you get a client into your business, you want to formulate that partnership and have that partnership going for hopefully many years. So it's again about making sure that everything is working and working well. So automating the billing, again, I think a lot of businesses still do manual invoicing and accounts receivable, anecdotally, but through case studies as well. We've shown how, adopting Ignition for this particular part of the process can really reduce that friction, reduce debtor days quite significantly. I mean, we've got some case studies where customers have seen their debtor days go from quite a high number down to 0 within 6 months. So again, what we do is obviously we integrate directly with 2 ledgers, Xero and QuickBooks Online. So off the back of an accepted proposal, so you've sent out your engagement, you've done that relationship building, the client has accepted those services, they're happy with everything, and they know when they're going to be billed. Obviously, you want those invoices to be raised automatically. So through Ignition and with the connected ledgers, it's a set it and forget it process. Everything's been accepted, agreed. The invoices are raised as per the agreement and the signed agreement. The payments are collected if you're using, the payment collection part of Ignition as well in the UK. But it really does allow you to not have to worry about any of the manual work that is typically done in the invoicing and accounts receivable world. So again, it's probably for me, it's the simplest part because it just works. Not everyone adopts it straight away. And I think there's a lot of processes that need to be unpacked in businesses who are doing it manually. But once you've seen the virtues of automated billing and invoicing and reconciliation, and you see the light bulb go on at the top of a customer's head, it's quite a moment. So for me, this is another area I think where Ignition really does provide that value. And an enhanced process. And again, it goes back to the client experience that I talked about in the beginning. You set the scene, you've done everything right up front, you've presented yourselves as a very professional outfit, and then that continues through the billing and invoicing part of the relationship as well. And we've got tools within Ignition, so if you're, let's say, scope changes, you can very quickly change that without having to re-engage or get a new proposal signed. If you're doing a volume price increase, all of this kind of stuff, it can all be done, which will automate, go back into the automated billing and invoicing in the future, just based on a few clicks in the system. So for me, it's the engagement part, then it's the billing part. And if you get those 2 things right, all you're doing is providing the services, building relationship, and hopefully selling more services to the client as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a win-win situation, win for you and win for the client as well.
Of course, absolutely, and that's the way it should work. Everything I say, it goes back to the client experience. I don't care if it makes me feel happy or sad. If the client's happy, then everything's working, in my opinion. So,
absolutely, awesome. I mean, that's pretty interesting to be able to win back. I think anytime being won back can be used more efficiently elsewhere, and I think that's the benefit of automation as well, is that something that you can actually invest it in a completely differently, the part of the business organization, or like you're saying, just selling additional services that you might have.
That's what it should be about, right? I mean, you shouldn't have a team within your business working just to make sure things are working. They should be there to provide services, build relationships, sell services. So automation's huge. I think it can be a bit of a daunting exercise for people who haven't experienced it before or even looked at how it might work. But then that's what we're all here for. We're here to help guide and sort of coach people through the right way to do it.
Absolutely. Awesome. I think we can then go on to the final process 3 for.
Yep. So again, this is the third part of the Venn diagram, and I think this is where the power of software really comes into play. And again, we work with our customers and other vendors as well quite closely to make sure that things are working together. But the third sort of area that we really do suggest people look at it is how to automate your workflow and deployment of certain workflows in the practice. There's different ways you can do that. Like I said, we integrate with some ledgers, so we can automate the invoicing and the billing side of things. That is part of the workflow management. We also integrate with other sort of workflow tools. And a prime example might be when you've done the engagement element that we talked about in the first part. That could be a trigger to say, well, okay, we've got a new client. What then happens? Traditionally, it might be, okay, somebody in team A needs to get some forms together, send them to the client via email. Somebody in team B needs to set them up in some other systems. But what you can do is actually connect a lot of software together, either directly, and that is growing, I think, as we speak. There's a lot of software out there. There's a lot of options. So really do your due diligence and understand exactly what you're trying to achieve before you start to take on new software. It's that shiny object syndrome. I think people see something and they take it. Next thing you know, you've got a whole bunch of subscriptions that you actually don't need. So I always say, think about what you're trying to achieve, go out and see what solutions are there, and then look at how they can talk to each other. So just to go back to the engagement part. So when a proposal is accepted in Ignition, as an example, you could then have an automated workflow that triggers something in your workflow management tool. And in there, you defined the different processes that are going to be delivered to onboard that client. You know that process A has a whole bunch of tasks, and each of those tasks will be done by whichever people in the team. So you can automate the delivery of all of those tasks throughout the team without having to sort of manually send messages here, send messages there. We use Zapier. It's a really powerful tool. I think most of us do actually on this call. It's a really good stopgap to plug software together that don't natively talk to each other. But again, it really is how long's a piece of string. There's so much you can do in terms of automation. And as I was saying just now, automation can be a daunting prospect, I think, for people. But certainly from an Ignition perspective, when you get assigned a key account manager to help you on board, and we'll take you through what that looks like, help you to map out what you're doing, give you some best practice advice. It's really down to the individual to understand what they need to do and how they're going to achieve that. But when you do have a well strategized process internally across everything that you do, you can then start to automate. So I always say, start low and start slow. Automate some highly repetitive tasks that you do a lot. Make sure that that's working, make sure you're comfortable with it, and then start to expand out and maybe look at some more complex automations as well. But we've got some customers who, I wouldn't say they just come in and press a button in the morning, but that you could automate 80% of your manual tasks that you do today through connecting different pieces of software. But it all goes back to thinking about what you need to achieve, how you deliver that, what needs to be done to deliver it, who's going to do it, when it needs to be done by, and then it all just flows seamlessly. And then obviously it goes back to the client experience again. It's a good thing.
I think you mentioned such a good point as well, Richard, just on making use of the key account managers as well, that the access that you have. Implementing and like you've mentioned, that there's so many software tools out there, and it can be quite daunting to implement a software or tool within your organization or within your firm. And so when you do implement a software, it's making use of the resources available to you as their key account manager to be able to properly onboard you and assist you during the process. It's like a hand-holding process as well.
Absolutely, and it really is. And none of us are subject matter experts in everything, but we all know a bit about, a little about quite a lot. So there is resources there and there's support there, and that's the part of my job that I absolutely love is when we do get a new customer into the world, to actually understand what they're trying to do, what they currently do, and go through that journey with them and help them to realize the potential of everything we've just talked about. So it's good fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. I think just to end off, I think like I've mentioned, you've given quite a good few interesting points as well, which has been pretty insightful. Just to end off, what do you think, or how important do you think is it to keep on top of just tools for internal practice management?
I think it's critical. Well, it depends on the type of business that you're running and the size of the business. I think if it's just you providing 4 or 5 services, then maybe you don't need that kind of solution. But when you start to expand, maybe 3, 4, 5 plus people in the team, some form of workflow management, I think is key, because it's like anything. It goes back to understanding what you need to do to provide services to a client. What does that look like? And then define all of that. Everyone knows what they need to do when they need to do it. It's about accountability. It's about client experience. I think workflow management, it's not necessarily something you need to think of straight away, but certainly as you start to scale your business, or your business becomes more mature and becomes more complex, then certainly a solution like that is definitely a must, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. Appreciate your insights. I think we'll move over to Stuart for now, but maybe just taking a few steps back, maybe Stuart, I'll just give you the floor just to do a little bit of introduction to everyone on the call.
Yeah, so I'm Stuart Hurst. So I run an accounting practice, Accounts and Legal, which is one of the fastest growing accountancy firms in the UK, with 2.5 million turnover, employing over 40 staff. I also work with the wonderful people at Approval Max, and I've been a big advocate for that software, as we do a lot of outsourced finance function and process controls and mapping with clients. So it's been an absolutely vital tool in the toolbox as well. So I kind of sit on both sides of the fence now, I guess, on the app side of things, but also actually as an accountant working and growing a practice.
Amazing. It's so great to have you on board and joining the call as well, just to share your insights. I think just before you joined there, that we've done a little bit of a poll as well, and it was quite interesting to see the results here of the various, the feedback on the various results as well. And I think maybe just to get, based on your experience, Stuart, what would you say are tools that you would consider as essential in automating your financial processes?
Yeah, it was really interesting, the spread on the poll, and I think it just shows, you know, there are such wide areas to which automate the practice itself. And as Richard said, you know, I think size of firm is important on growth plans in terms of where you would start that automating process, and also what types of clients you're going to be working with that will dictate where you should probably focus your time and effort as well. But I think all the areas mentioned have got huge scope for automation. I think the one that causes probably the most anxiety that I see is around the actual making payments for clients, the actual approval process for that, and because you're using clients' money, you're sending that over, that's in someone's own hands. That can be probably the most stressful of the bunch. And I would probably say if payments goes wrong, in terms of the consequences of that, like those are probably that's probably the highest risk area. But I can appreciate in terms of volume of accountants that will use that will be lesser so generally, whereas onboarding reporting is much more on receivables generally. Every accountant is going to do some form of that. So there's a bit of a mix there.
Wonderful, awesome. Sorry, Stuart, just to jump back to Richard. I see that there's 2 questions in the chat box just on for you, Richard. If you maybe just want to take it. We have one from Kirsty asking, what happens if a proposal is accepted but is to be invoiced at different milestones?
Yeah, so from an Ignition's perspective, so this is what I was saying about, you know, being able to do quite complex engagements very quickly, and part of that complexity in Ignition is being able to have multiple billing styles, I guess. So you could have different services billed at different frequencies. It might be that some are recurring, that you know what they are, so you just bill them every month. Some might be that you only bill when you've done the work. But like the question from Kirsty, you know, if you do have milestones, then you can put that into the billing style as well. So you can automate all of that, or you could say, well, actually, this particular part of the client billing is going to be automated. We know when that's going to happen, but the rest is going to be determined and billed later, depending on what has happened within the service delivery. So yeah, that's certainly from our perspective something that's actually quite easy to manage. Again, you know, we can help you get all that set up in templates, you know, when you come onto the board in Ignition. The next one, Afroz, is there anything, is there a training course that we can learn about the technicality to create automation? Is this for Ignition specifically? So Afroz, I can have a look and see who your account manager is. And yes, we do have some, certainly from an Ignition perspective, we've got a pretty good supports page. We've got a webinars hub as well. We've got a whole bunch of resources on case studies and best practice approaches and that kind of stuff. So yeah, let me look into that and I'll get back to you after the webinar.
If someone was starting Ignition tomorrow, they've signed up tomorrow, I mean, it might not be a one fit all answer, but is it generally better, would you say to people, right, start with new clients on a process from the start, or work on your old client bank of getting them all in the system onto the direct debits and the monthly setup, or somewhere in between? Time frame, would you
again, that's I think that's a tricky one to answer. It depends on the the customer coming into Ignition, what their current world looks like, what their client base looks like, how developed they are as a business in terms of what data they've got available. Do they know who all their clients are? Trust me, not everyone does. They don't necessarily know what services are providing to whom. So it's really a case of reviewing where they are. Some customers do like to go the more cautious approach and just use the solution for new clients as they come in, excuse me, as they come in to their world. Others just want to go through the big bang approach, say, no, let's just get a formal engagement out, get that signature in, get the payment details on file, and then start engaging services as we go through the year. So it really is a how long's a piece of string answer.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. That's all right.
Looks like another one has just been posted in the chat box for you, Richard.
On point 3, automate invoice and reconciliation connect to ledger. What if an accruals point is added? I'm not sure I understand what that means.
Okay.
What about if
maybe just a little bit more context will be added a little bit, and then we can perhaps
maybe we can follow up with that one after the webinar as well.
Perfect, awesome. Cool. I think as we maybe jump into the next part, Stuart, just before we've gone sort of to the chat box, you've given your insight just on what tools you consider as essential for automating. What do you think, or what do you see as the biggest challenges based on your experience that accountants and bookkeepers find just in adopting new solutions within their organization or in their firm?
I mean, generally speaking, it's finding the right tool. For starters, there's a lot of tools that do similar things. So making sure that they've backed the right horse, so to speak, is one, and that takes time and research. Finding time to invest in the process can be really tricky in terms of actually making time to implement it, and being strategic and planning enough so that the implementation ends up being firm-wide and adopted rather than a kind of stop-start, or it's on 2 clients and 2 clients are doing something different, 2 other clients are doing something different, that as a strategy it is adopted firm-wide is really difficult. And then knowing when you've started, it's just knowing that the support from the app provider is going to be there, the support maybe from other accountants or those around you is going to be there, so that because it's a big investment, sometimes in money, sometimes in time to do this, and change is hard. There was a survey done that when someone goes to a doctor and they are told they have got 12 months to live, they will die in 12 months unless they change their lifestyle fundamentally. So, maybe they smoke, maybe they don't eat well enough, they don't get enough exercise. They need to change their life or they will die. 70% of people are dead within 12 months. So change is harder. Like, people would rather die than change. So it's not easy, this kind of thing. So it takes planning, it takes strategy, and you really need to understand the why with your team of why you're making these changes to make it work. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is getting over that, as opposed to technically using any of the software.
So just very quickly, just to follow up on that last point, Stuart, is engage your team, right? Because they're the doers, they're the ones who will probably interact most, and get them on board, ask them what they think is best. Certainly in the adoption side of things, select somebody in the team, maybe give out some project work, upskill them in new skills. It's a really good way to sort of get over that sort of fear of change, certainly in the team's perspective.
Yeah, I think that collaboration and sort of that open discussion amongst the entire team is so important, because it doesn't just affect the one implementing or going after looking or researching the software, but everyone, like you're mentioning, Richard, everyone that's actually hands-on, that's actually going to have to use it as well. So yeah, getting everybody on board and doing that research is so important. And again, going back to the point of really making use of the resources available to you at the different vendors and at the different apps, like your key account managers, your support teams, to be able to sort of handhold and help you sort of onboard, as it can be a daunting process. Specifically, that Stuart of the change is interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And yeah, and just to add to that, I would add, if you're going to take it, if you want to take this seriously and you want to change your practice and your business, then yeah, be strategic and you've got to put the effort in of coming up with a plan and selling the dream, but also, lean on your app partner a lot. Like most apps, particularly these on the call, are exceedingly helpful. Account manager wise, will invest a huge chunk of time. It's in their interest as well to make sure that this works and grows. They want to work with you. And I think some people avoid speaking to account managers when actually, let's get them involved. Let's get training plans set up. Let's get monthly check-ins set up just to keep you accountable. Like most account managers are all over that and want to be involved. So do not be afraid for asking for everything in those first few months to make sure it works properly first time around, would be my other piece of advice on that.
Absolutely, totally agree. Awesome. I think let's jump then straight into your section, Stuart. Just maybe just take us through what are the 3 accounting processes that can easily be automated using Approval Max in your view.
Yeah. So Approval Max, essentially it's all about building processes, managing workflows, and bringing control to your firm. So in this automated of workflows, there are several areas that this process number 4 on the Approval Max, the actual workflows, can be used. So this can be used for your clients. So for those clients where you want to build an outsourced finance function, or you want to do management accounts even at the next lower level, having some kind of process around that is fundamental, and having time frames. And this is where Approval Max comes into its own, because effectively this is around, whether it's any kind of workflow really, but particularly those payables, receivables, those putting purchase invoices onto the system, getting approval. That can be difficult as a third party sometimes when you're not actually in a business. So Approval Max works beautifully for building a process with your client on how they will approve purchase invoices, sales invoices, and how we go from order, quotes and orders, to invoices, to payments effectively. And it can be, if you want to make the big money on outsourced finance function, you need something like Approval Max to work with those clients. I've seen processes go wrong when you work with a client, you produce management accounts, or you're paying the clients for their invoices, and you tell a client you've made £20,000 this month. Great. You get to next month and actually there's 10 grand of invoices that have come through late that Joe didn't send in properly, and no one knew about. They weren't approved. Someone's spending company money. There's no controls. As an accountant, you look like a bit of a fool that you've given bad information, and control process of that money, it's not there. So Approval Max stops all that and gives absolute peace of mind on this, that it works properly. So by having an approval process, we can set that for different levels of spend. So we're not, controlling every single £5 spend at a coffee shop. We can get that right. But we also know when we get to month end, okay, we've got 10 grand of invoices that we haven't received yet, but we need to accrue for those. So that's really, really important for having good financial information, decision making. So automating the approval process not only saves a ton of time and gives more clarity, but it helps improve that business and plan for cash flow, even like in an indirect way. This process is helping cash flow forecasting. And I think that's really, really important. And time-wise, how many times as an accountant do you chase your client for invoices, or this isn't on the bank rec, or where's this piece of information, and what have we spent? You can lose hours of your life chasing that information. By implementing this properly, they have to create those POs to raise that, to make that spend, to do it. So it's in their interest to do that, or they can't buy those things and create those things. And that takes so much pressure off the process of you having to chase. And it also gives financial freedom to those business owners to know that the money's being looked after and there are processes. And this process should evolve as you grow, really, as the finance function. And then secondly, you can use it internally for your practice to manage your own numbers, but flows outside of purchase invoices and payables. So if you've got different processes for set clients that are slightly different, you can map them out internally on who does what requests are made and when. And it's really powerful in that sense, just on a basic workflow basis as well. So and really easy to set up. You can see there's a little video running of adding approval steps on there. It's as easy as, how much can we spend? Who can we add? How do we put it in? Like, in terms of complexity, approval max is get a 3 out of 10. It's good, it's easy, a nice low score, it's nice and easy. It's not complicated to implement, but has saved us hours and hours and hours on chasing clients and building processes and understanding the numbers. So an absolute fundamental one for anybody doing management accounts or doing any kind of outsourced finance function. Like, it's an absolute must-have in your armory.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think a lot of it got to do with time saving. I think that's so important as well, is again with automation and just building in these workflows helps save a lot of time. And Stuart, you've mentioned you use Approval Max as well, and maybe just on average, how much time do you think you've saved, or you save, just by sort of chasing and not having to do the tedious, painful chasing after clients as well?
It's hours, and it's hours in two senses. It's hours on the chasing on the basic level, like we taught, you know, it's. But I mean, I get some facts and figures, but easily 30% of the time chasing information has been reduced, has been wiped out. Like, easy 30% on the, and that's just on the core chasing bit of time. But that's, you know, that's lower level juniors generally, if their time is saved. Where there is a further time saving is there's easily another 25% on the actual management account production, because we're not having to delay things, we're not having to move things around. We know that the management accounts will get done at certain times because the information is there, and we're saving time. Then we've never, when this is in, we're not having to rehash management accounts again because we've found out some information later on. So in terms of redoing financial information, and in terms of being able to schedule the work in at set times and know that's when it will get done, there's been a 20-25% saving top level there, with people that are on the big salaries that their time is particularly precious in terms of, you know, they've got real tight deadlines for each of these sets of management accounts. So absolutely fundamental in that respect too. Absolutely.
Awesome. I think, I mean, we can then move on to the next one, which is the second point for your automation.
So this is the scary one for me. Like, as an accountant, this is where I got a little bit scared of, oh God, I'm handling clients' money here. What if I pay the wrong person? Who is going to check it for me? Is it going to be okay? And then as your firm grows, like generally, you know, more and more people get their hands in the pot. You trust in other people, sometimes more junior. Are they going to get this right? Are they going to pay the right person? So there's stresses around financial security. There's also, again, if we go back to time saving, if you think about, you know, back how we used to do payments, you know, you'd have to have a fob from the bank. You'd have to get registered. That would be one person in your firm that would have that email address and fob. If they left, you had to re-go through the process with the bank, which was really painful to get the information. If that person was on holiday, it was really difficult. Like, even the accessibility on the traditional way of going into a client's bank account and making batch payments was slow, was inefficient.
Yeah,
you know, it relied on a few people in the business, and again, if they left and were off, life was difficult. And then we've got the scare factor of what if we get this wrong? And Approval Max payment methods takes all that pain away, like instantly, because we've got a direct link to the information. Like, we know the people that we're paying are in those batches. Like, we can't pay anyone outside of that batch. They're there, they're correct. So I've got peace of mind that the information's right. It's all done through, you know, Air Wallet. So again, different people can have access to that as well. So I haven't got worries about, oh, there's only one person in my firm that can do this. And the beautiful thing, again, on a time saving, it reconciles to zero and it pays them all off. So again, I've not then got away and matched that batch off a few days later and make sure it's right and make sure no one's changed anything. It's all there. Yeah. And then finally, it's got some fantastic security around if someone changes the bank details, you know, those are highlighted that things have changed and things have moved. And again, that is huge peace of mind for me, that even if the supplier's changed, if something's changed on those bank details, I want to know before I press pay. And again, all of that is essentially automated and controlled with this process. So for me, this payment process was something I avoided as an accountant. I only did it if I absolutely had to, before the Approval Max like payment process kind of came about and I could control my payments firm wide. So absolute game changer on the payments. Absolute game changer.
I think, especially any changes. I think that's so important, the audit trail. being able to check if anyone changed, where, at what point did it happen, and who made those changes. I suppose it's also a very key in before making those payments as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's all there, and you know, it's all in a process. It's a process that will be the same for every single client that you've got, instead of, oh well, hang on, they're with HSBC, they're with Barclays, so that's different. It's the same 5 steps, like, you know, rinse and repeat time and time again.
Yeah.
So from a process point of view, it's fantastic.
Awesome, perfect. I think then we can move on to the next one. Yeah, process 6.
Yeah, and last but not least, you know, I'll spend a brief time on this one. It's just the automatic audit report. So we talk about financial controls and reviews. It's peace of mind. Like, the most important thing is you're looking after your clients. Like, you know, if things have changed or controls have moved, that you are looking after your clients. But for those auditors in the room, like, you know, this can be so time consuming, and it's often a junior that's writing processes out, that's checking this information. It's time consuming for your client that's got to build a process map. It's time consuming for you that you've got to understand it, and it's different for every client. With this, you've got built-in workflows. With a click of a button, you can see what's been changed, not just to invoices individually and overwritten or, you know, approved outside of the system, but you can see if someone has changed a workflow. And that's really, really powerful, because then we've got control on, well, why has that been changed? Should that have been changed? And are those access rights okay? And it's that level of auditability that you very rarely get on any other systems. And this doesn't just link with Xero, you know, it links with Oracle, some of the bigger systems. So you've got full audit control on some really, really big systems at the click of a button.
That added layer of security, which is so important.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, you know, us as accountants, you know, we are the protectors really in many ways of that information, and, you know, we are the last line of defense on that fraud and control. So this kind of click of a button auditability is absolutely huge. Awesome,
brilliant. Thank you so much, Stuart, for your insights as well. When it comes to your top 3 processes, accounting processes that can be easily automated with Approval Max. I think we'll move on to Jessica from Fathom, and Stuart, feel free to jump in just on your insights as well, if you do have any, as we go along. But yeah, Jessica, let's talk automated reporting and analytics. On your side, what do you think are the 3 accounting processes that can be easily automated?
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. And yeah, there's been some really interesting insights shared so far. There's just 3 processes I want to talk about and how Fathom can automate them. The first process I want to talk about here is automating reporting and analytics. So we know reporting can be a source of frustration for a lot of accountants, and I think that poll at the start really highlighted it, with about 45% of you saying it's the most challenging to automate. So that paints a pretty clear picture. One of our expert Fathom users speaks to this frustration as well. So I just want to highlight Malcolm Pope, who's a partner from Shorts Accounting in Sheffield. He says with most of their work, they have to meet tight deadlines for the client or bank. When you're operating with time pressure, you don't need something that's out of your control to make that deadline even tighter. So there's a few ways that Fathom can give you that control back and help you stay stress-free around your reporting deadlines. One of them is with automatic data updates in Fathom. So we refresh your data and your information from your source accounting system daily, and that ensures your reporting is both up-to-date and accurate. Up-to-date data can be brought into reporting commentary as well. So your numbers will reflect the most recent results, and text can be automated as well to tell your clients what it all means. Reports can also be made into templates, and that allows you to share your reporting setup across any of your clients. So if you're using similar insights across your clients, or maybe you just have clients in similar industries, that's all scalable and transferable work as well. So once you have that report template you like, one of my favorite features in Fathom is that you can set it on a schedule. Essentially, that means Fathom is going to generate the report for you. So it'll update your charts, tables, your commentary, and you'll also get an email once the report's ready. So instead of doing all that manual work and kind of setting that admin of that calendar task, all you need to do during the reporting period is log into Fathom, review the report, and hit publish for your clients.
Amazing. Awesome.
Quite handy.
Which we love.
Yes, yeah. I want to quickly note as well, another Fathom user, Paul Barnes, he's the managing director from MAP in Manchester. He notes they have 45 clients that they need to produce management accounts for within a week of the month's end. So if you think about that turnaround, that's quite a tight deadline. So he uses Fathom templates to pull data directly from the source accounting system, and that's made it possible for them to deliver the reports quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, apologies, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, in and amongst other deadlines that you also have, I mean, this surely saves a lot of time.
Exactly. We all know how much of a headache that month end can be for our accountants, and we're here to kind of ease that pain a little bit. If we don't mind,
Paul Barnes is an absolute accounting legend, by the way. Like, so I know him very well. Like, when he talks, like, you listen. Like, so that is a massive bit of kudos there.
Yeah, he absolutely is, Stuart. And if anyone wants to find out a bit more about his processes, there is a blog post on the Fathom website that you can kind of look. I think it's under the customer stories section. So check it out if you're interested in hearing a bit more.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Just on the next slide for me, please. I'll just quickly pop in. Oh, apologies. Just the little customer quote there. Yes, beautiful. So this one is from Malcolm Pope again. So just noting that you can make a bespoke report for your clients within 10 minutes in Fathom. So for those of you who are doing management reporting, I'd take a moment to kind of compare that 10-minute bespoke report with your current processes and calculate your time savings. So it can be quite a powerful combination to combine scalability as well as automated insights.
Amazing.
Perfect. Perfect. The next process that we can automate, just on the next slide, thank you, is cash flow forecasting and budget creation. So as an added issue we see in conjunction with forecasting being time consuming, it's that it often requires senior expertise to create. So we know senior teams don't need more on their plate. And on top of that, your billable hours, if they're high, forecasting might be cost prohibitive for a lot of your client base. So it's quite a challenge. With Fathom, we have, again, some ways to ease that forecast build or that forecast creation time. You can use what we call a quick start forecast, which is adding statistical analysis over your insights, or you can do a custom option, which is, it's really a fill in the blank method. So it gives you a meaningful starting point. You can then kind of revise it and review it. But we do find those methods are typically friendlier for those who are newer to forecasting, and that includes your more junior team.
Awesome.
Yes, it's quite a nice one.
But how long does generally take to sort of set up something like this?
It's a good question. To get to that kind of meaningful starting point, it's literally a click of a button. So it can be a second, really. Obviously, you'll have to then review it and make sure it's pulling through as you'd like. And you know, there's things like tax settings, there's a few things to go into, but yeah, we typically find clients forecast with about 50% less time as compared to traditional models in Excel. So it's quite a bit quicker.
Sweet. Yeah.
Awesome. So again, we have the daily data updates and forecasting too. And we also have easy auditing. So we know auditing forecasts, again, can cause a headache, especially if you're someone who didn't generate it originally. So Fathom will tell you exactly where your P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow movements are coming from. It'll also track or produce an assumptions report, which will track any changes you've made, as well as any rules you've set. So you don't have to spend ages deciphering some complicated spreadsheet. It's all in one place within Fathom as well. I'll just quickly mention one final thing there, actually. So in terms of time saving, again, Grant Grief, who's the CFO from Drone Ops Group based in South Africa, said the time saving within forecasting has been around 6 hours per week for them, because the scenario planning is super easy to create and adjust when unexpected situations arise. So again, I think that's kind of speaks to the time saving that Fathom forecasting can give as well.
Yeah, again, I think that's so important when it comes to what we're speaking about today is the time saving aspect of it, and where you can actually use that additional time elsewhere, where it might be a little bit more needed or important as well within the firm.
Exactly. There's other places where hopefully you can kind of spend your time and add value for your clients that aren't through that admin and those kind of time consuming processes.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And I'll quickly pop to my last one here, which is consolidations. Thank you. So Fathom can consolidate up to 300 companies together with just a click of a button. So again, there's no more wrangling large amounts of data in Excel. You can perform quick eliminations within Fathom to ensure your reporting is accurate. Again, that data is going to update automatically in your underlying companies, so it will feed up to the group level. And then you can get a side-by-side comparison in reports, again, just within a few minutes time. I realize we're about on time, so if we just quickly pop to my next slide, I'll quickly note this is a quote from one of our outsourcing managers at Moore Kingston Smith. This kind of speaks to Cindy's point. Fathom strengthens their relationships with clients by surfacing their data quicker and creating more time to talk to clients about their business. So through Fathom, they draw out consolidated reporting and insights at a click of a button, and that gives them that time back in their day to really do things that are more meaningful. So it's a really insightful quote, and hopefully shows how Fathom consolidations can give you the time to provide those insights that matter.
And assistance support, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jessica, for your insights as well. I think that there might be another slide after this just for you to talk through quickly, and then we can move on to Stuart.
Yeah, if you're one of those 45% that said reporting's your challenge, feel free to scan this. It'll give you a 50% off discount for 2 months with Fathom, so you can sign up for the free trial. If you decide to actually subscribe to Fathom, you'll get the discount applied.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica, for your insights. Yeah, I'm just conscious of time as well. So I think we've gone 3. So Ignition, Fathom, and Approval Max has given 3 insights. So I think that takes us up to 9, and we promised 10 top 10 accounting processes, right? So I think I'm just going to ask Stuart, if you had to pick one accounting process, except for the ones that we've mentioned, to start automating, what do you think it would be?
I think outside of those ones, there's the task management, the practice management tasks around what gets done, what, who's doing what, where deadlines are up to outside of that. And that's where, well, this little gem comes in, that is Zapier, to bring it together, really, that it can connect to anything and everything. And if anyone's not looked at this, like, I'd make this number one. Like, this is the magic that weaves things together. Perfect.
Awesome. Wonderful. I think as we just move on to the next slide, we'll do a little bit of a poll as well. So if you are interested in learning more about Approval Max, Ignition, and Fathom, just by a click of a button, just put your polls in there. While we, just as we want to wrap up, while everybody's putting down putting in their poll numbers, I think just to wrap up on some tips for automation from the different vendors, what do you think that would be? And maybe we can start off with Richard on your side. What would you think just a tip on automation, where they can start?
Well, I think, yeah, we sort of touched on it earlier, and I know Stuart mentioned it as well. It's know what you're trying to achieve, right? What problem do you need to solve? And as I said right at the beginning, if you've not done a sort of a journey map, what does your end-to-end process look like from a client's perspective? Maybe do that, because it's a really good way to visualize where maybe you do have some opportunities to automate. So understand what you're trying to do, and then pick, I always say, start low and slow. So pick processes that are repetitive, low risk and easy. And then automate those, and then slowly start to expand out with some more complex things, and introduce a bit of risk as well into it.
Wonderful. Perfect. Jessica, on your side.
Sorry, Cindy, can you repeat the question?
So just a one tip just on approvals or just, of automations from different vendors. What would your tip be?
What would my tip be?
Yes, automation.
It's a good one. Yeah. I would say, give it a try. I know it's a bit daunting to kind of step into that world, but I think it's kind of like Stuart was saying earlier, you kind of have to take the jump and take that leap of faith. So yeah, even if it's scary, we're all kind of here to guide you through it. So if any of that kind of spoke to you today, just jump in, give it a try, open the line and speak to us.
And just very quickly, just to follow on that, look, I'm a bit of a geek, but when you automate something and you see that event happen in another system based on something else and you haven't touched anything, it's amazing. It's such a nice feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, geek moment.
They say a classic error when people try and automate and build a new process is they look at the process that they're doing already and try and stick bells and whistles and just automate what they're doing. Don't do that. Start with a blank piece of paper and rewrite the process based on the app or that you're working with that's going to work, because it will fail if you just try and add this software to what you are already doing. Like, use the software the way it's meant to be used. Would be my advice.
Absolutely. I'm conscious of time, so it looks like we've run out of time. We've gotten some feedback just on the poll results as well. So we do have an Approval Max, also just an end of year deal. So if you sign up for Approval Max by the 31st of December, you'll get 3 months free. So if you are interested, you put down your poll, we've reached out to you as well. So yeah. Thank you everyone for joining. And of course, just as mentioned in the beginning, we'll send a copy of the webinar recording after this via email with some links to, of course, contact details and free trials. And if we haven't answered any questions or gotten to your questions, we'll do so after the session as well. And of course, just want to thank my fellow panelists for joining and sharing their insights as well. It's been a great discussion with you all. So yeah, thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure hosting you. And yeah, have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Cheers, guys, and thank you everyone for attending. It was good fun. We could probably talk for hours actually on this kind
Absolutely.
of stuff.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.